Graduates, friends and family of the graduates, my friends and family, each of you has a unique life story that requires you to choose which paths your story will take. How you prepare for those choices and the paths that you take determine the arc of your life. I've used some principles to guide my choices, and I hope they provide some insights to illuminate yours. Passion is the most important thing in life. Find it, and you'll be a productive and a happy person. Your passion may be gardening. It may be organizing other people. It may be academic research. There are no certain routes or timetables for finding your passions, but if you're on the lookout for activities that give you pleasure and satisfaction, you will find your passions. If you work at what you're passionate about, you will be much more likely to find financial success and notoriety. But in any case, you'll have a richer and a more fulfilled life. My passions are music and innovation. I found them both when I was 11 years old. I've been taking piano lessons for a few years, and my teacher thought I might become a concert pianist. She arranged an audition for a scholarship at the prestigious Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. We traveled there from Brooklyn, and I played Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata. Halfway through the second movement, I had an inspiration. I was sure I could wow the judges by improvising in the style of Beethoven, like I did at home. I wove my original melodies into his chord progressions and returned to the written music for the ending. I thought no other pianist would be able to duplicate my creativity, and I could really get to the front of the pack. It felt great to showcase my innovation for the judges, and when I rose after the last chord, I expected beaming smiles and thunderous applause. Alas, I was greeted with frowns and silence. The adjudicator exclaimed, "Really?" I seriously doubt Mr. Beethoven would have approved of your tampering with his music. Next. Far from being disappointed at not getting the scholarship, I was elated to have performed my music on a big stage for an attentive audience. I knew then that creating and performing music made me feel good, very good. Hard work is a really good preparation for success. I was 13 years old when my family moved to Toronto. I attended Bathurst Heights Collegiate, found school fun, and got good grades. I took extra courses to fill every spare in my schedule. In addition, all through high school, I studied music privately with a teacher after school. When I was in my senior year, I had my meeting with the guidance counselor to determine what I might do next. He asked what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to be a musician. He noted that I was the only student who got 100% on all my math and science courses and suggested that I take the toughest course at University of Toronto, a triple major in mathematics, physics, and chemistry. I paused briefly, having given my future career no significant thought at all. And with nothing relevant to say, I just blurted out, "Okay." I enrolled in U of T. Like many other students, I had no idea what sort of job or career I might have after finishing my university studies. But at university, I didn't have much chance to think about my future career because life presented some unexpected speed bumps, and I learned to take the hand that I was dealt and to make the most of it. My mom died of cancer, and I had to look after her aging parents who had no other relatives in Toronto. I loved my mother very much, and it took a long time to process my loss. Brenda, my girlfriend, became pregnant, and we became teenage parents with unexpected family and financial responsibilities. We coped. 50 years later, we're still happily married. While attending university, I worked as a recording musician and took every wedding and bar mitzvah gig that was offered. I worked as an arranger for the CBC. I was 18 years old. As a triple major, my courses were tough and my workload was heavy. At the time, I couldn't see any benefits of studying science. But in my third year, I experienced a connection with my passion for innovation that led to a second career path as a researcher. I was struck by the profound implications of modern physics that decompose reality into fundamental events that make no sense, but that have been proven many times. Einstein cast time as a dimension like space, and he proved that matter and energy are interchangeable. But even Einstein couldn't swallow quantum theory, which turned predictive science on its head. Quantum theory proves that reality is just a game of chance, that we can't know everything about anything, and that the very best we can hope to do is to predict a likely future. However, this predicted future is not necessarily our future, because all futures, no matter how slight their probabilities, will happen in some universe, but not necessarily the universe that we inhabit. Oddly, this philosophical conundrum echoed my own musical sensibilities. One could say that for every jazz improvisation, all the possible choices of notes, rhythms, articulations, and sounds exist with different probabilities. And what the musician does is we choose one set of those for our solos. Or one could say that among the infinite number of universes predicted by quantum theory, every possible solo exists, and that the particular solo we hear is just the one in our universe. Or one might say that the soloist channels God and makes no musical choices at all. Experientially, there's no difference. It's important to take risks. In 1968, I went to a music club in New York and I bumped into Skip Prokop, the drummer who was playing there. The next day, by chance, I was seated next to him on a flight back to Toronto. We chatted and discovered that we both had a passion for film music. Skip had an idea for a rock band with jazz horns and symphonic strings that could perform music with the scope of film scores. He suggested we form the new band together. I had been planning to accept a job as a music professor from an African university, and Brenda and I decided to spend the next few years there. Our children were young, and this was the perfect time to take risks and to broaden our horizons. Now we had an additional rock band option to achieve the same goals. Would we choose Africa or rock? We flipped a coin. The coin came up rock and roll. And that triggered the start of Lighthouse, the band that dramatically altered my life story. While Lighthouse was touring, I heard from a friend that one of his friends knew a guy who was producing a Hollywood movie. I wondered how this slight connection might lead to a job as a film composer. It turned out that the connection was only to an associate producer who had no hiring influence. So I took a big risk at a hefty cost. I took a flight to the West Coast with my composer's demo in my hand. I had no guarantee that my connection could arrange a meeting with the main producer, but when the plane landed, I called him and I told him I was in town and that I hoped to present my demo in person. When I arrived at my hotel, there was a message that I could come to the set the next day. I went, I played my demo for the main producer, and he agreed to send me a script. It arrived in Toronto a week later. I wrote a proposal for the music score, and to my big surprise, I got the job. When the Ground Star Conspiracy was released, The Hollywood Reporter gave my music a glowing review and established me as a composer acceptable to the major studios. When you have some success, I suggest that you build on it. I had a great run as a film composer back in Canada. I had proved myself in Hollywood, made some hit records, and had orchestral chops from my music studies. I composed dozens of feature film scores, and York University's music department judged them to be equivalent to a doctorate in music composition. They gave me a faculty position, and it was a midlife start of a new academic career, and I absolutely loved it and continue to love it. 4 years before the web was invented, I sensed that digital content would disrupt the entertainment business. I decided to make digital content my field of research, matching my lifelong passions for music and innovation. But government councils didn't fund research in fine arts. I discussed the problem with the senior administration at York University, and they agreed with my assessment They hired me to do a study to identify new funding sources for digital media research. I submitted my report as a video that I made with a Macintosh computer with the assistance of one of our sons, David, who was a recent film school graduate. We interviewed the presidents of IBM, Bell, and the CBC, and other stakeholders in the emerging digital content business, as well as artists such as Oscar Peterson. They all testified in front of the camera that Canada needed to fund digital media research. I sent copies of the video to the Federal Minister of Culture and Communications, and 2 weeks later, the minister's office phoned me to tell me that they would provide a $5 million startup grant. I hadn't yet sent in any application for funding. This was the beginning of York University's Caltech Research Center that I directed for 10 years. A few years after we started Caltech, the web was invented, and digital media exploded into a super hot topic as one of the leading innovation centers. My work at York caught the attention of Terry Fisher, the director of Harvard Law School's Berkman Center for Internet and Society, where Wikipedia, Creative Commons, and indeed Facebook were born. Harvard gave me a faculty position at the law school where I shared a MacArthur Foundation grant to invent a new business model for the entertainment industry. Then they sent me to China to trial the solution that we came up with on file-sharing university students there. When I returned to Canada about 3 years ago, I also returned to my passion for music performance. These days, I spend much of my time playing and recording jazz and touring with Lighthouse. Why did I have such good luck? When I think back on the critical decisions I've made that branch my life story, it seems that I was frequently at the right place and at the right time. Brian, our other son, thinks otherwise. He's a professor of philosophy, and he believes I'm a Taoist. He thinks that I just empty my mind of mundane material matter so it can be filled with Wu Wei, the power of the universe, which then guides my actions and makes them seem spontaneous, effortless, and efficacious. The Taoist master musician transcends his knowledge and skills by letting them go, allowing the best musical notes to arrive on their own. As Yoda said in Star Wars, "Your ally is the Force. There is no try, do, or do not." I think of my life more as a jazz solo. We jazz musicians spend thousands of hours practicing and learning frameworks for our creations. Then we close our eyes and we leap naked off of musical cliffs. We whisper or we scream, whatever comes into our heads. And if we're talented, we usually have a soft landing. There are some similarities among the Tao, jazz, and Yoda. They all guide you to find your passion, work hard, follow your instincts, take risks, and tap into a force greater than yourself. Of these, the most important is to follow your passion, and with your permission, I will follow my passion and share it with you with the assistance of some wonderful musicians that we have with us today. Thank you very much.